and we'll get started. So yeah, let me get started with the show. Good morning, happy Tuesday. This is Inside OPRF Museum, and I am Rachel Berlinski. I'm the operations manager here. I am coming to you from the very quiet Fields Research Center in the museum, and I say quiet because we've already had a busy morning here. We just got done hosting one of the second grade classes from WWII Elementary School. So we hosted them for a tour. It went pretty okay. Lots of engaged students this morning. And now I am glad to be here with you all. So today is Giving Tuesday, and that is a global day of sharing where people show support for their favorite nonprofits, usually with monetary donations. So we at the Historical Society always rely on the generosity of our donors and supporters. So I would say if you are willing and able to show your support today with a donation, you can get in touch with me to do that. And I will have some more information at the end of today's program on how you can show your support with financial giving. But I want to highlight in this program another way that our donors and supporters give to us. And that is with things, adding to our archives and adding to our collection of artifacts here at the museum. So what I've got for today's presentation is I'll be showing you just a handful of things that have been donated to the museum in the past year, and talking a little bit about the items as well as some kind of general ideas of how we use those items in the museum. And I also want to try and highlight the people who have been giving us these things. So some fun stories to share, hopefully some things that surprise you and some things that relate to you, and hopefully some things that you have questions about as well. So I will be looking at the chat box today as we go along, or I'll try my best to look at that if you have any questions or comments, and especially at the end of the program, hopefully I will have some time to take questions. So let me see if I can get started here on the show. Again, my spiel for Giving Tuesday. So that is why we are here today on this very fine Tuesday morning. So you've probably been hearing a lot of different things about nonprofits, especially today is a big day for nonprofits to be able to get donations. So I very much appreciate you all for being here and listening to my spiel. And if you are able and willing to give today, today is the perfect day. But here's some other things that have been added to our collection at the museum here in the past year. 2023 has been a banner year, if I may say. And if you have been following along with us at all this year, then you've been hearing a lot about Oak Park River Forest High School. 2023 is the start of the 150th anniversary celebration of the high school. So we at the museum this year have been working a lot on different ways to celebrate that anniversary all throughout the community, but especially here at the museum. I have been very grateful to be one of the co-curators of our new exhibit that opened this fall, Ever Changing Yet the Same, which talks all about the high school's history, all different eras. There's lots of ways that you and visitors can interact with the exhibit here, especially if you have memories of your time at OPRF High School. And one of the great ways that people have been interacting with us is by giving us things from their experience at the high school. So I've got some samplings of different sorts of things that people have been giving to us, graduation programs, play programs, reunion things like the cup that you see here, different sorts of things that people have gotten from reunions that they went to, and also activities that they went to. I want to highlight this really cool program that somebody gave to us from one of the state championships that the basketball team played in. This one is from 1956. And there's even a cute little note on the bottom of it. If you can see, this came from a scrapbook. So the person who went to the program, to the basketball game, wrote down who they went with and who bought their ticket and who they sat with and all that sort of cute stuff. So lots of ways that people have remembered their high school experience, they are now sharing with us. I'm going to show off a couple other things related to high school history because, again, we have been, may I say, swimming in it lately. Is all about OPRF. So on the left, you see a Letterman sweater that we got in the mail from a woman who lives in Cincinnati. And her father was a football player at OPRF, graduate from 1940. And so this is a interesting example of one of the sorts of things that we've been getting, different Letterman sweaters, but this one has ended up being more of a question of it. She specifically said letter sweater, but there is no letter on it. There are only stripes. And so I think especially in this era, you would have had to do something like really particularly extraordinary to get a letter versus these stripes indicating like how many years you were on the team, and like how many years you were on the varsity team versus the regular team, and etc. So there's been a lot of different sort of details that have come out of some of the things that we've gotten. So that's an interesting sort of research project that we have, along with not just the old, but the new. This lacrosse jersey, this is a practice jersey from the lacrosse team, from a person that just graduated in 2023. So this is brand new and came to us from the neighbor of Sherry Bentrup, who is one of our staff members. So things from all over. And one other, oh, I'm already pointing to it. Yeah, one other example of some of the niche cool things that we've been getting from people's high school experiences. So over my shoulder, you can see we've got this playing card, which is like 2.5 feet tall, is actually an invitation to the King of Hearts dance. And this would have been, I understand that they don't do this anymore, but this would have been kind of the winter formal turnabout dance where the girls asked the guys. And this came to us from a family named Erickson. Their daughter Ellie graduated in 2009, and Ellie would have used this as kind of what we would call a promposal, or a really extravagant way to ask somebody to the dance. So that, and the family pointed out to me that it worked. The guy said yes. So this fun little piece of what is now history, because again, I don't think, I think they tried to get back to doing this dance, but they stopped doing it for a while at least. So all sorts of history related to the high school. Many stories have been coming out from this exhibit. And again, I just want to plug, if you haven't already seen it, even if you have already seen the exhibit, there's always more to see. And especially since we've been getting so many things over time, this exhibit will be up and through 2025. So at least for the next year. And we expect to probably change out some things as time goes along. So there will hopefully always be something new to see. And there's just so much to see as it is. So always more reason to come back to the museum. Next, talking about the exhibit, I want to highlight one of the people who helped us put this exhibit together among many of our curators, co-curators, volunteers that helped put this exhibit together. One of them over the summer was a student named Clara Ware, and she is a 2023 graduate of OPRF. She recently went on to, I believe, the University of Toronto. But she worked on digitizing some things that we now have on display in the exhibit over the summer, and very grateful for her help. She is also the daughter of Chris Ware. If you have heard of Chris, he's a local artist who up until recently lived in Oak Park. Their family just recently moved out of Oak Park, and you've probably heard about his house going for sale not too long ago. But Chris Ware is an illustrator who's done a lot of work for the New Yorker magazine, especially. He does covers every once in a while. So somebody gave to us this year a couple of magazines that he did the cover for last year. So you can see these are dated 2022. And one of the notable things about Chris's art, especially with these illustrations, a lot of times you can see scenery that is based on his time in Oak Park. So the houses on the left look very similar to probably something that you would see walking down the street here in Oak Park. And on the right, I know he's done a couple of covers that feature a school, and a lot of times that is based off of By School, where his daughter went to school. And also that he usually illustrates people by using people that he knows. So very often if you see a woman, it's based off of his wife, or if you see a young girl in here who kind of looks like Clara, I'm kind of looking for that, because very often she will appear in these illustrations as well. So, and Chris is a great friend of the museum, so happy to show off some of his work here and to keep gathering his work because he is still active. So that is that. Let me move on here to show you a very fun resource that keeps coming back to me. If you've ever done research in the Fields Research Center here, working on learning about your house, your building, or your family, or your business, or any sort of thing really related to like early Oak Park River Forest history, we will very often use these city directories. So the one that I am showing you here is the cover and the inside of a copy from 1897. And I am just amazed that we received this donation just this year. Somebody found this in their house, had it in their family collection for whatever case. This still existed in somebody's house, and they donated it to us in 2023. So again, very often if I have researchers working with me in the research center and we're looking at documents or books of this age, people will say to me, how on earth do you find this stuff? And I get to say, people still keep them and have them, and therefore we are able to use them. So yeah, just want to highlight this as something that if you have done research, or if you ever do research with me here at the museum, we will undoubtedly use this for a lot of different purposes. And they just keep on coming. So speaking of research, I have a lot of people that come in to look at the history of their house. And once you get a lot of information about it, there are a lot of different ways that you can put that information together. So I've talked with a lot of homeowners who end up putting together like a packet or something that they will often share with like the next owner, or they'll give to us to put in the archives as like consolidated research. But I have this year a donor who did research with me a couple of years ago named Laura Schwartz. And she loved the stories that she was finding so much, she actually made an actual book out of the history of her house. So she gave us this book, and it includes not only the stories that we were finding about her house being built, some of the families that we found that lived there, but she also included some articles from newspapers at the time just to kind of give a snapshot of different time periods, like some of the ads that she would have seen for like appliances that she knew were in the house, or different things that give like a flavor of the history of the house over time. So this may be something inspiring to you all if you have information about your house, or if you are interested in learning more and you wonder what sort of ways that you can keep these stories, this is a potential way to do it. Albeit this is pretty extreme, is she made an actual book, but a lot of times even just a typed version of things is a good way to keep information together and share it with us or the next people. Similar story for my next example is what to do with information about your families or people that you find of interest. So this donation came to us this year from one of our members, Erica Vulich, who had local family ties and wrote a couple of books about, these are actually specifically the women in her family and all of the important things that they did in the community. So 3 parts is probably a lot to ask for a lot of people, but even if you have, any sort of genealogy research and you're wondering what to do with it, this might be an inspiring story to you all, is write it down and see how you can organize it that way, and then see how you can share with us, especially local stories that we would be able to use in the archives here. Let's see. Okay, speaking of local authors, one of the collections that we have here at the museum is from local author Robert K. Elder, who is also a great friend of the museum. He gave us a couple of years ago his archives. So a lot of his publications, which include magazine and newspaper articles. He's a nationwide writer for the New York Times and different sorts of publications. But he also does a lot of books, and he is a Hemingway scholar. The way he talks about it sometimes seems like he's an accidental Hemingway scholar. He kind of just, the train got on the tracks and now it keeps going on the tracks. He keeps ending up being asked to write things about Hemingway. So this is an example of one of the very interesting things that he has written related to where Hemingway shows up in the world, in media. Would you have ever thought that Hemingway had anything to do with Mickey Mouse, let alone in Italian? So this book, and I believe it started that he wrote it in English and then they translated it into Italian, but you could see that this book is in Italian. And my fun story is when I got this book from Robert this year, I had to look up what the word Topolino meant. And if anybody like me watches the Ed Sullivan Show, then you know Topo Gigio. So that was my only clue. And so Topo means mouse in Italian, and Topolino would mean little mouse. So that's just my fun little trivia for you all here. But again, to say that we have Robert Elder's archives, and he is continually writing different sorts of things. So we have a really interesting breadth of his work, and always growing. So yes. So a little bit of a change of pace here. I want to move on to a couple of things related to World War II service of a couple of local servicemen. And this is an example of some documents and photos, and we actually got a uniform from the niece of Sergeant Gordon Waters, who lived in Oak Park and served in World War II. Um, his niece Shirley now lives in, I believe, Naperville, but she gave to us some things related to his service. And so just my fun story with this donation especially is we got this really great photo of Gordon here. And when I saw this, when I worked with Shirley, when she was donating these things, and I talked to her, and when I saw this photo of her Uncle Gordon, I said, wow, he looks exactly like Errol Flynn. And she said to me, and I quote, yes, and he knew it. So I just laugh every time at that story, and it really is an example of bringing these people back to life through their stuff, and especially through photos and stories and things like that. So I'm glad that we are able to preserve things like this about this wonderful serviceman. But sometimes we do not have those stories readily available. So this is an example of another item related to a service member from World War II that Captain George Crane lived in Oak Park on Paulina Street. You can see this item is a foot locker, and I was checking to see if it was behind me. It is, but you can't see it. It's about 3 feet long, and came to us from our wonderful volunteer, John Borland, who just recently retired from the Park District of Oak Park. But he's also he's a war reenactor. So he has a lot of things related to World War I and World War II, especially. He knows a lot of people who collect a lot of things related to wars. So one of John's friends found this footlocker and donated it to our museum because it is from a local person. However, nobody knew anything about the person who this footlocker belonged to. So some of our volunteers here ended up doing some more research and finding out more about Captain Crane. And I should have checked if I'm not mistaken. I believe he was a dentist, and he might have been in the dental corps and then went on to be a dentist in Oak Park. So through newspapers especially, we were able to find out more about this gentleman, but only because we saw his name on the footlocker. So by getting things, we're able to find out more about people that we didn't know existed otherwise. Let me move on to talk about some local artists. So I have newly donated this etching from an artist named Charles Dahlgreen, who I believe he died in the 50s. So kind of that time period, he lived in Oak Park. And I'm going to use this phrase wrong, but I think he was kind of a commercial artist, whereas like it seems like a lot of people purchased his artwork. I've seen a lot of people have his etchings, and he would a lot of times do like these sorts of landscapes. So this one in particular is, like I said, by a local artist, and it was donated to us by a local family, the Palazzolos. And I want to highlight them because they are also local artists. So Marcia and Tom Palazzolo are, again, wonderful friends of the museum, and Marcia was a longtime board member here. They are both photographers. Marcia, especially, I know, taught photography classes at Rosary College, which is now Dominican University. She also, I didn't know this before, but apparently she taught first grade. So recently she published a book of photos that she took of her first graders. And so you see on the left is her book, and on the right, you can see one of Tom's books. And this is, I think, maybe his most recent one of photography that he took on Clark Street, I believe 70s and 80s, that kind of time period. So he's also a very well-known photographer. And they live locally. They have for, I think, over 50 years or somewhere around 50 years. And have been cleaning out their house recently. So they gave us a lot of things. But this is one of the ways that we can highlight their work here. I should also plug that Marcia's book is available in our gift shop if anybody's interested in that. I'm going to zoom through a couple more things here. I mentioned Dominican University, and they celebrated their 100th anniversary in 2023. So I worked with a lot of people from the school to do more research about the buildings that were built 100 years ago. I got some publications from their archivist that talks about the Sinsinawa Dominican nuns, which was the group that started the school. So we have some resources like that here now to be able to tell more about the history of the school. And then another anniversary celebration to talk about is the 150th anniversary of First Baptist Church. It was also in 2023. And I worked with Karen Borgstadt to get some research on that church. And then she probably a bunch of people from the church put together this book on the history, which she then donated back to the museum as a resource. So hopefully that is a way that we can help celebrate some other anniversaries coming up in the future. I know there's a couple different buildings and organizations that turn 100 in 2024. Sesquicentennials in 2023. This was one of them. High school was one of them. I know somebody on the call whose house is turning 100 in 2024. So if you've got celebrations like that we can help with, hopefully we can be a resource for all sorts of anniversaries. And I think that is a zoom through on some stuff. So I want to invite you all to ask me some questions in the chat box if you have any. I'll take a look for those. And I also want to say, if you've got some questions here now, then chat box is open, but if you have some after the program, my contact information is on here, as well as how you can give today. So if you enjoyed this presentation, I certainly hope our supporters make it possible for us to do free programming and for us to be here in this museum, open to the public and available for research and any sorts of things that we can do for the community here. So if you are able to give financially today, you can do that on our website. It's at oprfmuseum.org. You can call me at the museum with any sorts of questions. I can tell you all about how to give today. I want to read through this one question. Topolino, little mouse, is what Mickey Mouse is called in Italian, just in case that wasn't clear, but I think that's what you were already saying. Well, I didn't specifically know that Mickey Mouse would have been called Topolino, but yeah, for some reason, I think you should check out this book, really, because the connection that they made with Hemingway and Mickey Mouse, you know, Disney, is worth checking out. But to show that Hemingway's influence continues, and in some very extraordinary ways. Well, we have gone through a lot of things today, but like I said, this was only a sampling of a very small sampling, honestly, of the things that people have been donating to us this year. So I I'm very grateful for everybody who has contributed to the collection here and who keep us in mind for being able to share stories of the community here. And I think with that, I'm going to sign off for today. So I want to thank you all for joining me and invite you to come to the museum to see our exhibits. We've got a members only party that is happening December 1st. That's this Friday. So get more information about that on our website as well. And I hope to see you all here at the museum soon. And thank you all for joining me. Okay, until next time.